The paper in my hand was shaking so hard I could barely read the words. DNA test results. Probability of paternity, 0%. My husband stood across our living room with his arms crossed, his face like stone. His mother sat on our couch with this sick smile on her face, like she'd just won the lottery. My 3-month-old baby was screaming in his crib upstairs, and nobody was moving to get him. Nobody except me. But when I tried to walk toward the stairs, Brock stepped in front of me. "Don't," he said. His voice was so cold it didn't even sound like him anymore. "Don't touch him." I felt my knees buckle. "What are you talking about? That's our son. That's Oliver. He's not mine." Brock's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. "According to this test, he's not my son. Which means you've been lying to me this whole time." The room started spinning. I grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. "I never cheated on you. Not once. Not ever. Brock, you have to believe me." His mother stood up then, smoothing down her expensive skirt. "Constance." The woman who'd smiled at our wedding while secretly hating every second of it. "Denial is a powerful thing, dear," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "But the science doesn't lie. Perhaps you should have thought about the consequences before you betrayed my son." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. Instead, I just stood there with tears pouring down my face, holding a piece of paper that was destroying my entire life. Oliver's cries got louder upstairs. My breasts ached with milk. My body was still recovering from 36 hours of labor. And the man I'd promised to spend forever with was looking at me like I was a stranger. "I'm filing for divorce," Brock said. "My lawyer already has the paperwork ready. You have 48 hours to pack your things and get out." Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. The worst part wasn't even the accusation. It was the way he wouldn't look at Oliver. Our baby. The child we'd planned for, dreamed about, spent 9 months preparing for. Brock hadn't held him in weeks. I'd thought it was just new father nerves, or maybe postpartum stress affecting both of us. But now I understood. His mother had been poisoning him against us this whole time. "Brock, please," I begged. "Just listen to me for 1 second. I don't know what that paper says, but it's wrong. It has to be wrong. I've never been with anyone else. You're the only man I've been with in 3 years." Constance laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, sweetie. They all say that when they get caught." Something inside me snapped. I looked at this woman who'd made my life hell since the day I met her. Who'd criticized every choice I made. Who'd told Brock I wasn't good enough for him at least 100 times. Who'd pushed her way into my pregnancy, my delivery room plans, my baby's life. And suddenly I knew. I didn't know how yet, but I knew. She did this. "Get out of my house," I whispered. Brock's head snapped up. "Excuse me." "Not you. Her." I pointed at Constance. "Get her out of my house right now, or I swear I'll." "This isn't your house anymore," Constance interrupted. She picked up her purse like she was leaving a lunch date. "You have 2 days. I'd suggest you start packing." She kissed Brock on the cheek and walked out the front door. I stood there in the silence, listening to Oliver cry and cry and cry. Brock wouldn't even look at me. He just turned and walked into his office, closing the door behind him. I heard the lock click. I stumbled upstairs and picked up my baby. He was red-faced and sweaty from crying. I held him against my chest and felt him calm down immediately, his little hands gripping my shirt. He knew me. He knew I was his mother. That bond was real, even if everything else was falling apart. My phone was on the nightstand. I grabbed it with shaking hands and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Renata. My best friend since high school. The only person in the world I trusted completely right now. She answered on the second ring. "Hey girl, what's up?" I couldn't even get the words out. I just sobbed into the phone while Oliver made little confused sounds against my neck. "I'm coming over right now," Renata said. "Don't move. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I can't stay here, I managed to choke out. He's kicking me out. He thinks I cheated. His mother showed him a DNA test that says Oliver isn't his, but Renata, I swear on everything I never. Wait. Stop. A DNA test. Her voice changed. Got sharp. From what lab? I pulled the paper out of my pocket where I'd crumpled it and read her the name through my tears. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Renata. Pack a bag, she said quietly. Pack a bag right now and go to your parents' house. I need to see that document in person. Why? What's wrong? Just trust me. I'll meet you at your parents' in an hour. And bring that paper with you. Don't let anyone else touch it. She hung up before I could ask anything else. I stood there in Oliver's nursery, the room I'd painted yellow because we wanted it to be sunny and happy. The crib Brock and I had put together while laughing at the confusing instructions. The mobile hanging above it that played a lullaby. Everything we'd built together. And I had no idea that in 1 hour, my best friend was about to tell me something that would turn my grief into rage. I met Brock 2 years ago at a volunteer event for homeless veterans. I was serving food, and he was helping organize donations. He had this laugh that made everyone around him smile, and when he looked at me across that community center, I felt something shift in my chest. Like the world had just tilted in a new direction. He asked for my number before the event ended. We went for coffee the next day. Then dinner the day after that. Within a month, we were inseparable. He was a financial advisor with a good job and a good heart. Or at least I thought he had a good heart. He volunteered every weekend. He remembered little things I told him, like how I took my coffee or what my favorite flower was. When he proposed 6 months later under the autumn leaves in Central Park, I didn't even hesitate. My parents loved him. My friends loved him. Everyone said we were perfect together. And for a while, we were. But there was always Constance. I met her 2 weeks after Brock and I started dating. She lived in a mansion in Connecticut and expected us to drive up every Sunday for dinner. The first time I walked through her door, she looked me up and down like I was something stuck to her shoe. So you're the new one, she said. Not nice to meet you, or I've heard so much about you. Just the new one. Like I was replaceable. Like she'd seen 100 girls like me come and go. During dinner, she asked me about my family. Where they were from. What my father did for work. When I told her he was a mechanic, her smile got tight. How? Blue collar. She said it like it was a disease. Brock didn't defend me. He just kept eating his roast chicken and changed the subject. I should have seen it then. That first red flag waving right in front of my face. But I was so in love I convinced myself it didn't matter. His mother would come around eventually. She just needed time to get to know me. I was so stupid. The engagement made things worse. Constance insisted on planning the entire wedding. She took over everything. The venue, the flowers, the guest list. Every choice I tried to make, she shut down. That's not appropriate for our family, she'd say. Or, people in our circle would never accept that. Our circle. Like I wasn't already part of it. Like I was still waiting outside some invisible gate. Brock kept saying she meant well. That she was just excited. That she wanted everything to be perfect for her only son. I tried to be patient. I tried to be understanding. But the morning of the wedding, when I was getting ready with my bridesmaids, Renata pulled me aside. Are you sure about this? She asked. About marrying Brock? Of course I'm sure. I'm not talking about Brock. I'm talking about her. Renata nodded toward the door, where Constance was out in the hallway giving orders to the wedding planner. That woman doesn't like you. And she's never going to like you. Can you really spend the rest of your life dealing with that? I laughed it off. I told Renata she was being dramatic. I said love conquers all, or some other naive nonsense. Then I walked down that aisle in a dress Constance had picked out, to music Constance had chosen, in a venue Constance had booked. And as I got closer to Brock waiting at the altar, I saw Constance in the front row. She was leaning over to whisper something to her sister. When she noticed me looking, she didn't smile. She didn't even try to hide the expression on her face. It was pure disgust. Like she was watching her son make the biggest mistake of his life. I should have turned around right then and run. Finding out I was pregnant was the happiest moment of my life. Until I told Constance. Brock and I had been trying for a few months. When that test showed 2 lines, I cried happy tears for an hour straight. Brock picked me up and spun me around the kitchen. We called our families to share the news. My parents screamed with joy. My dad actually cried. Then we called Constance. The silence on the other end of the phone lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. "Constance, did you hear what we said?" Brock asked. "I heard." Her voice was flat, cold. "Are you sure it's yours?" I felt like she'd slapped me through the phone. Brock laughed uncomfortably. "Mom, what kind of question is that?" "A reasonable one. You've only been married 8 months. How well do you really know her?" I grabbed the phone from Brock's hand. "I've never cheated on your son. Not once. Not ever. And I can't believe you would even suggest." She hung up on me. Brock made excuses. She was shocked, he said. She wasn't expecting it so soon. She'd come around once she got used to the idea. But she didn't come around. She got worse. The visits started almost immediately. She'd show up at our house unannounced with bags of things we didn't need. A fancy stroller I hadn't asked for. Designer baby clothes in colors I didn't like. A crib that cost more than our car. Everything had to be her way. Everything had to meet her standards. When I tried to decorate the nursery myself, she criticized every choice. The yellow paint was too bright. The stuffed animals were cheap-looking. The books I'd picked out weren't educational enough. "If you're going to raise a child in this family," she said, "you need to start making better decisions." Brock never stood up for me. He'd just nod along and say things like "Mom has good taste," or "She raised me and I turned out fine." But the worst part was how she talked about my pregnancy like it was some kind of inconvenience. She complained that I was gaining too much weight. She made comments about how I dressed, how I walked, how I ate. At a family dinner when I was 6 months along, she actually said to the table, "Well, we'll just have to wait and see if the baby looks like Brock or someone else." Everyone laughed. Like it was a joke. But I saw her face. She wasn't joking. If you're enjoying this story so far, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And drop a comment letting me know what you think of Constance. Trust me, it gets even crazier from here. The pregnancy was hard. I had morning sickness for 5 months. My back hurt constantly. I couldn't sleep. And through all of it, Constance was there, watching, commenting, judging. She insisted on coming to every doctor's appointment. When I said I wanted just Brock in the delivery room, she threw an actual tantrum. Called me selfish. Said she had a right to be there for her first grandchild's birth. Brock tried to reason with her, but eventually he gave up. He always gave up when it came to his mother. The day I went into labor, I was terrified. Not just of the pain, but of what would come after. I knew Constance would find some way to make even this moment about her. And I was right. 36 hours of labor. 36 hours of pain so intense I thought I would die. The doctors said Oliver was in a difficult position. They talked about emergency C-sections. Brock held my hand through most of it, but he kept leaving the room to update his mother who was pacing in the waiting room. And then during one of those updates, when I was alone with just the nurses, I heard shouting in the hallway. Constance had somehow gotten past the nurses' station and was trying to force her way into my room. Security had to escort her out. When Brock came back, his face was pale. "What did she say to you?" I asked between contractions. "Nothing. Don't worry about it." But I saw the doubt in his eyes. Whatever she'd said, it had planted something dark in his mind. Oliver was born at 3:47 in the morning. 7 pounds, 6 ounces. Perfect tiny fingers and perfect tiny toes. When they laid him on my chest, I forgot about everything else. The pain, the fear, Constance waiting outside. Nothing mattered except this little person who'd been inside me for 9 months and was now real and breathing and mine. Brock cried when he held him. "He's perfect," he whispered. "Our son is perfect." But when Constance finally came into the room an hour later, the first thing she said was, "He doesn't look like you, Brock." The first few weeks with Oliver were the hardest days of my life. Nobody tells you how exhausting it is. How you'll survive on 2-hour stretches of sleep and forget what day it is. How your body will hurt in ways you didn't know were possible. But they also don't tell you about the love. That crushing, overwhelming, terrifying love that makes you understand why parents would do anything for their kids. Brock was excited at first. He'd wake up with me for the 2 a.m. feedings. He'd change diapers and bounce Oliver when he cried. We were a team. We were figuring it out together. But slowly, something started to change. He stopped waking up for the night feedings. Said he had early meetings and needed sleep. Then he started working late. Coming home after Oliver was already down for the night. When I'd try to talk to him about it, he'd get defensive. Say he was providing for his family. Say someone had to pay the bills. But I knew it was more than that. I could feel him pulling away. And I didn't understand why. Constance, meanwhile, was over at our house constantly. She'd show up every afternoon with some excuse. Bringing groceries we didn't need. Wanting to hold the baby. Taking hundreds of photos on her phone. At first I thought maybe she was actually bonding with her grandson. Maybe becoming a grandmother had softened her. I was wrong. She watched everything I did. How I fed him. How I burped him. How I changed him. And she always had some criticism ready. That's not how I did it with Brock. You're holding him wrong. He's crying too much, you must not be feeding him enough. Nothing I did was ever good enough. One afternoon when Oliver was about 2 months old, Constance showed up with a piece of paper. I've scheduled a DNA test, she announced. I was in the middle of nursing Oliver. I looked up at her like she'd just spoken in a foreign language. A what? A DNA test. For medical purposes. It's important to have genetic records for future health issues. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. All modern families do it. We don't need a DNA test, I said, trying to keep my voice calm even though my heart was racing. We know who Oliver's parents are. Of course we do, dear. But it's just good practice. For medical records. She looked at Brock, who'd just walked in from work. Isn't that right, sweetheart? You want what's best for Oliver. Brock shrugged. I mean, if it's for medical purposes, I don't see the harm. I wanted to argue. Something in my gut screamed that this was wrong. But I was so exhausted I could barely form thoughts. Oliver was crying every 2 hours. I hadn't showered in 3 days. My stitches still hurt. And Constance was standing there in her designer outfit looking at me like I was being unreasonable. Fine, I said. Whatever. The appointment was scheduled for the following week. Constance insisted on coming with us. The lab technician swabbed Oliver's cheek and Brock's cheek. It took maybe 5 minutes. Results in 2 weeks, she said cheerfully. I didn't think about it again. I was too busy surviving. Oliver had colic and screamed for hours every night. Brock started sleeping in the guest room. Said he couldn't function at work without sleep. I understood, but it still hurt. I felt so alone. Constance's visits got more frequent. Almost daily now. She'd let herself in with the key Brock had given her without asking me. I'd be sitting on the couch in my pajamas, covered in spit-up, and she'd walk in looking like she was about to have tea with the Queen. She'd take Oliver from me and walk around the house with him, whispering things I couldn't quite hear. Once, I walked into the nursery and found her taking photos of Oliver's face. Close-ups from every angle. What are you doing? I asked. Just documenting his growth. For the baby book. But something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. Brock barely interacted with Oliver anymore. When he came home from work, he'd go straight to his office. On weekends, he'd find excuses to be gone. Golf with clients. Errands that took hours. I tried to talk to him about it, but he'd just snap at me. Say I was being paranoid. Say he was doing his best. But I knew better. I could see it in the way he looked at Oliver. Or more accurately, the way he didn't look at him. He'd hold him if I specifically asked, but he'd hand him back as soon as possible. Like Oliver was a stranger's baby he was watching out of obligation. The day before everything exploded, Constance came by with an envelope. The test results came early, she said. My blood went cold. What test results? She smiled. The DNA test, dear. Remember? For medical purposes. I reached for the envelope, but she pulled it back. I think Brock should open this. Don't you? It's his son, after all. She left without another word, taking the envelope with her. I tried calling Brock, but he didn't answer. I tried texting. Nothing. He was at some work dinner, according to his calendar. And I was alone with this terrible feeling growing in my stomach. I knew what was coming. I didn't know how, but I knew. Constance had done something. She'd set up some kind of trap. And tomorrow, it was going to snap shut on my entire life. I woke up that morning knowing something was wrong. It was the kind of feeling you get right before a car accident. That split second where time slows down and you see what's about to happen, but you're powerless to stop it. Brock was already up. That was the first sign. He was never up before me anymore. He'd taken to sleeping later and later, letting me handle Oliver's early morning screaming sessions alone. But today he was dressed and sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that looked untouched. Morning, I said cautiously, Oliver on my hip. He didn't look up. My mother is coming over. She needs to talk to us. My stomach dropped. About what? She didn't say. But the way he said it, I knew he was lying. He knew exactly what this was about. Constance arrived 15 minutes later. She didn't knock. Just walked right in carrying that manila envelope like it was a winning lottery ticket. She sat down on our couch without being invited and smoothed her skirt. Everything about her body language screamed victory. I think you should sit down, she said to me. I stayed standing. What's going on? She opened the envelope slowly, deliberately, like she was savoring every second. Then she pulled out a piece of paper and handed it to Brock. Not to me. To him. I watched his face change. The color drained out of it. His hands started shaking. This can't be right. What? Let me see. I tried to grab the paper, but he held it away from me. The DNA test results, Constance said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. I'm so sorry, Brock. I know this must be devastating. But you deserved to know the truth. That's when Brock finally looked at me. And the expression on his face was something I'd never seen before. Disgust. Betrayal. Hatred. You cheated on me, he said flatly. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? No. No, I never. The test says there's a 0% chance Oliver is my biological son. His voice was shaking now. 0%. Which means sometime in the last 3 years, you slept with someone else. I felt the world tilt sideways. That's not possible. I've never been with anyone else. Brock, you have to believe me. I swear on my life. Don't. He stood up so fast his chair fell backwards. Don't swear anything. Just tell me who it was. How long it went on. Whether you ever actually loved me or if this was all some kind of game. Tears were streaming down my face, but I couldn't feel them. Everything felt numb and far away. There's nobody else. There's never been anybody else. That test is wrong. It has to be wrong. Constance made this little tsking sound. Denial is the first stage of grief, dear. But the science doesn't lie. This is from a reputable laboratory. I made sure of that. She turned to Brock. I know this is hard, sweetheart. But you need to protect yourself. Legally and financially. I already spoke to our family attorney and he's prepared divorce papers. You what? I couldn't breathe. You can't just, this is insane. I didn't cheat. I would never cheat. Then explain the test results, Brock said coldly. I can't explain them because they're wrong. I was shouting now, Oliver starting to cry in my arms. Brock, please. You know me. You know I would never do that to you. To us. But I could see it in his eyes. He'd already decided. His mother had planted this poison and he'd swallowed every drop. All those months of him pulling away, avoiding Oliver, sleeping in another room. She'd been working on him this whole time. Setting this up. Preparing him to believe the worst of me. I want you out, he said. Pack your things. You have 48 hours. This is my home too. Our home. You can't just. I can and I will. He grabbed his phone and started typing. I'm texting my lawyer right now. Consider yourself notified. The divorce proceedings start Monday. Constance stood up and put her hand on Brock's shoulder. I know this is painful, son. But you'll get through this. We'll get through this together. You don't need her. You never did. That's when I finally saw it clearly. This woman had been planning this from the beginning. Maybe not the exact method, but the end result. She'd never wanted me in her son's life. And now she'd found a way to remove me permanently. Get out of my house, I whispered. Technically, it's Brock's house, Constance said with a smile. Your name isn't on the deed, dear. I made sure of that when he bought it. Everything was closing in. The walls, the ceiling, Constance's smug face. I couldn't stay here another second. I grabbed my phone and Oliver's diaper bag and headed for the door. Where are you going? Brock demanded. Away from both of you. I drove to my parents' house with tears blurring my vision and Oliver screaming in his car seat. My mom took one look at my face and pulled me inside. I told her everything while she held Oliver and my dad paced the living room looking ready to murder someone. We're getting a lawyer, Dad said immediately. This is garbage. You don't just throw someone out of their home based on. I need to call Renata first. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. She needs to see this test. Renata answered on the first ring. What's wrong? I couldn't even form sentences. Just sobbed into the phone while my mom took it and explained the situation. There was a long pause on the other end. Send me a photo of that DNA test right now, Renata said, her voice sharp. Don't show anyone else. Don't post about it online. Just send it to me immediately. Mom took a photo and texted it. We waited. 2 minutes felt like 2 hours. Then Renata called back. I'm coming over right now. Don't talk to anyone. Don't sign anything. And whatever you do, don't let Brock or his mother know you're questioning those results. Why? Renata, what did you see? Her voice was ice cold. That test is fake. And I can prove it. Renata showed up at my parents' house 30 minutes later with her laptop and a file folder thick with papers. She didn't even say hello. Just marched straight to the dining room table and spread everything out like she was preparing for war. Show me the original, she said. I handed her the crumpled paper I'd been clutching since I left. She put on her reading glasses and examined it under the lamp. Her jaw got tighter with every second that passed. This is amateur hour, she finally said. I can't believe they thought they'd get away with this. My dad leaned over her shoulder. What are you seeing? Everything. Renata pointed to the top of the document. First, this lab code. Gene Trust Laboratories, facility number GT4782. I work with genetic testing facilities every single day. This code format doesn't exist in any database. I checked 3 different registry systems on my way over here. There is no Gene Trust Laboratories with this facility number anywhere in the United States. My mom gasped. I just sat there feeling numb. Second, look at this signature. Renata traced her finger along the bottom. Dr. Patricia Westmore, Ph.D. I looked her up. There are 2 Patricia Westmores with doctorates in this country. One is a marine biologist in California. The other is a pediatric dentist in Florida. Neither of them have anything to do with genetic testing. This name was just made up or pulled from somewhere random. But the stamps, I said weakly. The official-looking seals. You can buy those on Amazon for $12. Renata pulled up her laptop and showed me. Authentic-looking medical stamps. DNA testing kit props. This whole thing could have been put together in an afternoon by anyone with a printer and basic Photoshop skills. The numbness was starting to crack. Underneath it, I could feel rage building. Hot and fierce and focused. There's more, Renata continued. The actual genetic markers they listed here? They don't match the standard panels used in paternity testing. These numbers are gibberish. If you showed this to any actual geneticist, they'd laugh you out of the room in 30 seconds. My dad was pacing now, his face getting redder. So Constance just made this whole thing up? She fabricated a legal document. Not just fabricated. Forged. Which is a crime, by the way. Renata looked at me. But here's what we need to do. We need to get a real DNA test. From an actual accredited laboratory. With proper chain of custody. Something that will hold up in court when you sue this woman into oblivion. Brock will never agree to another test, I said. He already believes I cheated. Why would he question his mother? Then we make him question her. Renata's smile was sharp. We show him proof this document is fake. We show him the lab code doesn't exist. We show him that his mother committed fraud. And then we demand a real test. I looked down at Oliver sleeping in my arms. His tiny face so peaceful, so innocent. He had no idea his grandmother had tried to erase him. Had tried to convince his father he wasn't real, wasn't wanted, wasn't family. Something inside me hardened into steel. Okay, I said. Let's destroy her. We spent the next hour building a case. Renata printed out registry documents showing no gene trust laboratories existed. She got statements from 3 colleagues in genetic testing confirming the format was fraudulent. She even found the exact stamp design on an Amazon listing, ordered 2 days before Constance had presented the results. She got sloppy, Renata said. She probably thought nobody would question it. That Brock would just believe her and that would be the end of it. She almost succeeded, I whispered. My mom put her hand on my shoulder. But she didn't. Because you called Renata. Because you trusted your gut. The plan was simple. We'd go to the house tomorrow morning when Constance would likely be there. We'd present our evidence. We'd demand Brock agree to a legitimate DNA test from a real laboratory. And we'd make sure Constance understood that if she interfered again, we'd press charges for fraud and forgery. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about all the signs I'd missed. The way Constance had insisted on that test. How she'd taken all those photos of Oliver. The whispered conversations with Brock I hadn't quite heard. She'd been planning this for months. Maybe since the moment I announced my pregnancy. In the morning, I dressed carefully. Not like someone who'd been crying for 24 hours straight. Like someone going into battle. I put on my best outfit. Did my makeup. Pulled my hair back. I wanted Constance to see that she hadn't broken me. Renata picked me up at 8. You ready for this? I've never been more ready for anything in my life. We pulled up to the house I'd been thrown out of 2 days ago. Brock's car was in the driveway. So was Constance's Mercedes. Perfect. I used my key to open the door. Brock looked up from the couch, surprised. What are you doing here? I told you. We need to talk, I interrupted. All of us. Including your mother. Constance appeared from the kitchen with a coffee mug in her hand. When she saw Renata with me, her face went pale for just a second. Then she recovered, arranging her features into that fake sympathetic smile. Sweetie, I know this is hard for you to accept, but showing up here with your friend isn't going to change. The DNA test is fake, I said flatly. The room went silent. Brock stood up. What are you talking about? Renata stepped forward and placed her folder on the coffee table. The laboratory listed on those results doesn't exist. The facility code is fraudulent. The doctor's signature belongs to someone who doesn't work in genetics. And the genetic markers listed don't match any standard paternity testing panel. This document is a forgery. That's ridiculous, Constance said, but her voice was shaking. I went to a reputable facility. I made sure. Show me the receipt, Renata interrupted. Show me the intake forms. Show me anything that proves you actually took Oliver and Brock to a real laboratory for testing. Constance's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Brock was looking between us, his face confused. Mom? What is she talking about? She's lying. Constance's voice got shrill. She's desperate. She'll say anything to cover up her affair. What affair? I shouted. I never cheated. Your mother made this whole thing up because she never wanted me in your life. She's been trying to get rid of me since the day we met. That's not true, Constance said, but she was backing toward the door. I only wanted what was best for my son. By forging legal documents? Renata held up the printed Amazon listing. You bought this stamp 2 days before you presented those results. I have the tracking information. Do you want me to show Brock your credit card statement? Something in Brock's face changed. He looked at his mother with an expression I'd never seen before. Mom, tell me this isn't true. Constance's composure was cracking. Her hands were shaking. Coffee was sloshing out of her mug onto the expensive carpet she'd insisted we buy. I did it for you. To protect you. The words hung in the air like a confession. Brock's face went white. You faked the DNA results. She was never good enough for you. Constance was crying now, mascara running down her face. I could see it from the beginning. She was going to ruin your life. Trap you with a baby and take everything you worked for. I had to make you see. So you told me my son wasn't mine. Brock's voice was so quiet it was terrifying. You made me believe the woman I loved betrayed me. You tried to destroy my family. For what? Because you didn't like her background. I did it because I love you. Constance reached for him, but he stepped back. Get out. Brock, please. Get out of my house right now before I call the police and have you arrested for fraud. I'd never heard him talk to his mother like that. Never seen him stand up to her. For a second, I felt a flicker of something. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe hope. Constance looked around the room like a trapped animal. At me, at Renata, at her son who was looking at her like she was a stranger. Then she straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and walked to the door. You'll regret this, she said. All of you. The door slammed behind her. In the silence that followed, Brock slowly sat down on the couch. He put his head in his hands. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. But sorry wasn't enough. Not even close. Brock cried for an hour. Just sat there on that couch with his face in his hands, while I stood across the room holding Oliver and Renata packed up her evidence. I didn't comfort him. Didn't touch him. Just watched him fall apart. I should have known, he kept saying. I should have questioned it. Should have trusted you. Yes, I said. You should have. He looked up at me with red eyes. Can you ever forgive me? That was the $1,000,000 question, wasn't it? Could I forgive the man who'd thrown me out of my own home? Who'd believed his mother over his wife without even asking questions? Who'd looked at our innocent baby and refused to hold him because he thought I'd cheated? I don't know, I said honestly. Renata cleared her throat. I'm going to step outside and make some calls. Give you two some privacy. She squeezed my shoulder on her way out. You don't owe him anything, she whispered. Remember that. When the door closed, Brock stood up and tried to approach me. I held up my hand. Don't. Just stay over there. Please. Let me explain. Explain what? That your mother has been manipulating you your entire life? That you're so desperate for her approval you'll believe anything she says? That you don't actually trust me at all? My voice was getting louder. We've been together for 3 years, Brock. Married for almost 2. I carried your child for 9 months. And it took your mother one piece of paper to make you throw all of that away. She's my mother, he said weakly. And I'm your wife. Or I was supposed to be. But apparently that doesn't mean anything to you. He flinched like I'd hit him. What do you want me to say? I want you to say that you're going to cut her out of your life completely. That you're never speaking to her again. That she'll never be allowed near Oliver as long as she lives. I was shaking now, adrenaline and rage and grief all mixing together. But you won't say that, will you? Because deep down, you'll forgive her. You'll make excuses. You'll say she just loves you too much or she made a mistake. She committed fraud, Brock said. She tried to destroy our marriage. I'm not going to forgive that. You say that now. But in a month? 6 months? A year? She'll cry and apologize and tell you she's sorry, and you'll let her back in. Because that's what you've always done. That's what you did our entire relationship. He didn't argue because he knew I was right. We need a real DNA test, I said, forcing myself to stay focused. From an actual laboratory. With proper documentation. Today. Of course. Whatever you need. I'll call right now, Anne. I already called. Renata walked back in holding her phone. There's a facility 20 minutes from here that can see you in an hour. They'll do cheek swabs for both of you and Oliver. Results in 3 business days. We drove to the lab in separate cars. I wouldn't get in a vehicle with Brock. Wouldn't sit next to him or make small talk or pretend everything was okay. At the facility, a kind technician took us to a private room and explained the process. Swab Brock's cheek. Swab Oliver's cheek. Sign the paperwork. Wait for the results. It took 10 minutes total. 10 minutes to prove what I'd known all along. That Oliver was Brock's son. That I'd never betrayed anyone. That the only liar in this family was Constance. 3 business days, the technician said cheerfully. We'll email the results directly to both of you. 3 days felt like a lifetime. Back at my parents' house, I finally let myself break down. Renata held me while I sobbed into her shoulder. All the fear and anger and exhaustion of the past few days came pouring out. My mom made tea nobody drank. My dad threatened to hire a lawyer and sue Constance into bankruptcy. She could go to jail for this, you know, Renata said. Forgery, fraud, attempted extortion if we really push it. I have friends at the DA's office who would love to prosecute a case like this. I don't know if I want that, I admitted. I just want her gone. Out of our lives forever. You might not have a choice. Brock might press charges. But I knew better. Brock would agonize and debate and eventually decide that destroying his mother wasn't worth it. He'd convince himself that she'd suffered enough just by losing access to him and Oliver. That was the man I'd married. Conflict avoidant to a fault. The next 3 days were torture. I jumped every time my phone buzzed. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything except waiting for that email. Even though I knew what the results would say, some tiny part of me was terrified. What if I was wrong? What if somehow Constance had been right? But that was crazy. I'd never cheated. I knew that with absolute certainty. The test would prove it. Brock called and texted constantly. Apologizing, begging to talk, asking if he could see Oliver. I ignored most of it. Sent short replies when I had to. Not yet, and I need space and stop asking. On the 3rd day, the email arrived at 2:47 p.m. I was feeding Oliver when my phone chimed. My hands started shaking so hard I almost dropped him. Renata grabbed the phone. Do you want me to open it? No. I need to. I handed Oliver to my mom and took the phone with trembling fingers. Clicked the email. Downloaded the PDF. The page loaded so slowly I wanted to scream. And there it was. In official black and white from a real laboratory with a real facility code and a real doctor's signature. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. Brock was Oliver's father. Oliver was Brock's son. Everything Constance had said was a lie. I started laughing. Or maybe crying. Or both at the same time. Renata was cheering. My mom was hugging me. My dad was on the phone already, probably calling a lawyer anyway just for good measure. I forwarded the email to Brock without any message. Just the results. Let him see for himself what his mother had tried to take from him. He called 30 seconds later. I let it go to voicemail. Then I blocked his number. I wasn't ready to talk to him. Wasn't ready to hear more apologies or excuses or explanations. Maybe I'd never be ready. The results had proven I was innocent, but they hadn't erased what he'd done. How quickly he'd believed the worst of me. How easily he'd thrown away our family. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Oliver curled up in his bassinet next to my childhood bed. The house quiet except for his soft breathing. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something like peace. But I knew this wasn't over. Constance wouldn't just disappear. People like her never did. And I had to decide what I was going to do about my marriage. About Brock. About whether some things, once broken, could ever really be fixed. The phone calls started 2 days after the results came through. First from Brock, which I continued to ignore. Then from numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. Most of them were Brock using other people's phones. His friends, his co-workers, even his father who I'd met maybe twice in 3 years. But one voicemail made me pause. It was from a lawyer. Brock's divorce attorney, actually. Calling to say that his client wished to halt all divorce proceedings and enter marriage counseling instead. He's not giving up, Renata said when I played it for her. That's something at least. Is it though? He didn't fight for me when it mattered. He's only fighting now because he knows he was wrong. So what are you going to do? That was the question I'd been asking myself for days. What did I want? Did I want my marriage back? Could I ever trust Brock again? Did I even want to try? The truth was I didn't know. A week after the results, Brock showed up at my parents' house. My dad answered the door and I heard raised voices. Then my mom's calmer tone. Then footsteps on the stairs. He wants to see Oliver, Mom said gently. You don't have to talk to him. But he has a right to see his son. She was right. Whatever was broken between me and Brock, Oliver deserved to know his father. I couldn't keep them apart just because I was hurt. Fine. 15 minutes. Out here in the living room where everyone can see. Brock came upstairs looking terrible. He'd lost weight. Had dark circles under his eyes. His shirt was wrinkled like he'd slept in it. When he saw Oliver, his whole face crumpled. Can I hold him? I handed over our son without a word. Watched as Brock cradled him carefully, like Oliver was made of glass. Tears were streaming down his face. I'm so sorry, he whispered to Oliver. I'm so sorry I doubted you. That I wasn't there for you. I'm going to do better. I promise. Something in my chest twisted. This was the man I'd fallen in love with. The one who volunteered at homeless shelters and remembered little details and cried when he was happy. Somewhere under the mama's boy who'd thrown me away, this person still existed. But was that enough? I cut her off completely, Brock said without looking at me. Changed my locks. Blocked her number. Sent a letter through my attorney telling her she's not allowed to contact me or come near Oliver ever again. If she tries, I'll file a restraining order and press charges for fraud. I didn't respond. Just watched him with Oliver. I know that doesn't fix what I did, he continued. I know sorry isn't enough. But I need you to know that I see it now. How she manipulated me my whole life. How she controlled everything. How I let her treat you. He finally looked up at me. I was a coward. I chose her over you because it was easier. Because standing up to her meant accepting that my mother didn't actually have my best interests at heart. And I wasn't ready to face that. And now you are? My voice was flat. What changed? The fact that you got caught? That the DNA test proved you were wrong? The fact that I almost lost everything that actually matters? He kissed Oliver's head. I'm going to therapy. Real therapy, 3 times a week. I'm working on understanding why I couldn't set boundaries with her. Why I believed her over you. I'm not asking you to forgive me or take me back. I'm just asking for a chance to prove I can change. I looked at my husband holding our son. At the family we'd been supposed to be. At the ruins of what we'd built together. I need time, I said finally. I need space to figure out what I want. What's best for Oliver? What's best for me? How much time? I don't know. Months maybe. Maybe longer. He nodded slowly. I'll wait. However long it takes. I'll keep going to therapy. I'll keep proving to you that I'm serious. And I'll be the best father to Oliver that I can be, even if you decide you can't forgive me. After he left, Renata looked at me thoughtfully. You're actually considering taking him back? I don't know what I'm considering. My brain says run. But my heart. I trailed off. Your heart wants to believe people can change, Renata finished. Maybe they can. But you don't owe him anything. Remember that. Over the next few months, Brock kept his word. He came by 3 times a week to see Oliver. Never asked to come inside. Never pressured me to talk beyond logistics. He sent child support checks that were twice what any court would have required. He texted updates from his therapy sessions. Not the details, just letting me know he was going. And slowly, painfully, I started to heal. Started to remember who I was before all of this. Started to think about what I actually wanted my future to look like. I went to therapy too. Worked through the trauma of being accused and abandoned. Learned how to set boundaries. Figured out what I would need if I ever decided to give Brock another chance. One afternoon when Oliver was almost a year old, Brock came by for his visit and I actually invited him inside. We sat in the living room drinking coffee while Oliver played on the floor between us. He looks like you, Brock said softly. I don't know how I ever doubted it. He has your eyes. Your smile. He has your stubborn streak, I replied. Refuses to sleep through the night. We both laughed. It felt strange. Normal. Like maybe we could be something again. Not what we were before, that was gone forever. But maybe something new. Something stronger because it had been tested and survived. I miss you, Brock said. Not just as Oliver's mom. I miss talking to you. Laughing with you. I miss my wife. I'm not your wife anymore, I said gently. That person you married, who trusted blindly and made herself small to keep peace. She's gone. If we're ever going to try again, it has to be with who I am now. Someone who won't put up with anyone treating me badly. Not even you. Not even your mother if she ever tried to come back. She won't, Brock said firmly. I filed the restraining order last month. She violated the no-contact letter. Showed up at my office making a scene. The judge granted a 3-year order. She can't come within 500 feet of me, you, or Oliver. That should have made me happy. Instead, I just felt tired. Sad that it had come to this. That a grandmother had willingly destroyed her relationship with her own grandchild out of spite and control. I'm not ready yet, I told Brock. To move back in or reconcile or whatever you want to call it. But maybe we can start dating again. Real dates. Getting to know each other again. His face lit up. Really? Really? But slowly. And with conditions. You keep going to therapy. We go to couples counseling. And the first time you choose someone else over me or Oliver, I'm done. No second chances. No explanations. Just done. I understand. I swear I'll prove to you. Don't swear anything. Just show me. 1 year later, Brock and I were sitting in couples therapy when our counselor asked the question I'd been dreading. Do you think you can ever fully trust him again? I looked at Brock sitting next to me on that uncomfortable couch. At the man who'd worked so hard to earn back what he'd thrown away. Who showed up every day, did the work, proved over and over that he'd changed. Who'd cut his mother out of his life permanently and never looked back. I don't know, I said honestly. Some days I think yes. We've rebuilt something good. Something different than before, but maybe better in some ways. Other days I remember how fast he believed I'd betrayed him and I wonder if that doubt is still there somewhere deep down. Brock's face fell, but he nodded. That's fair. I don't blame you for wondering. I blame myself every day for what I did. But here's what I do know, I continued. I know that Oliver deserves to have both his parents in his life if possible. I know that Brock has done everything I asked and more. I know that we're better together than apart. And I know that holding on to anger is only hurting me, not him. Our therapist smiled. That's growth. We'd been dating for almost 6 months. Real dates, just the two of us while my parents watched Oliver. Getting to know each other again like we were starting over. And it was working. Slowly, carefully, we were building something that felt more solid than what we'd had before. Last month, Brock had asked if I wanted to move back into the house. I'd said no. Not yet. But I'd agreed to him spending 2 nights a week at my apartment. Baby steps toward maybe eventually being a family under one roof again. The hardest part was trust. Every time his phone rang from an unknown number, I tensed. Every time he was late coming home, my brain went to dark places. Every time he mentioned his family, I wondered if he secretly missed his mother. But he was patient with my triggers. Never got defensive or annoyed. Just reassured me over and over that he'd chosen us. That he'd always choose us from now on. Then one Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello. Is this Mrs. Reynolds? A woman's voice I didn't recognize. Who's asking? This is Janet Porter from St. Catherine's Hospital. I'm calling about Constance Reynolds. You're listed as an emergency contact. My blood ran cold. I'm not her emergency contact. We don't have any relationship. I apologize for the confusion. Her son Brock is listed as primary, but his number is disconnected. You were the secondary contact in our system from an old file. What happened? Mrs. Reynolds had a stroke. She's stable now, but she's asking for her son. Can you please pass along the message? I stood there holding the phone, feeling absolutely nothing. No sympathy. No concern. Just empty. I'll let him know, I said and hung up. When Brock came by that evening, I told him. Watched his face carefully for his reaction. Is she going to be okay? He asked. They said she's stable. He nodded slowly. Thanks for telling me. Are you going to go see her? This was the test. The real one. Not the therapy or the dates or the promises. This. Brock looked at Oliver playing with his toys on the floor. Then at me. No. I'm not going to see her. She made her choice when she forged those documents. When she tried to convince me my son wasn't mine. When she attempted to destroy my family because she didn't approve of who I loved. I'm sorry she's sick, but that doesn't change what she did. I felt something release in my chest. Something I'd been holding tight for over a year. You're sure? I asked. I'm sure. You and Oliver are my family. She stopped being family the moment she decided her control was more important than our happiness. He reached over and took my hand. I'm not making the same mistake twice. I'm choosing you. I'll always choose you. That night after he left, I cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. From finally believing that maybe, possibly, we actually had a chance. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Return address from St. Catherine's Hospital. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was from Constance. The handwriting was shaky, probably from the stroke. The letter was 2 pages of apologies and excuses. How she'd only wanted to protect Brock. How she realized now she'd gone too far. How she hoped I could find it in my heart to forgive her. How she wanted to meet her grandson before it was too late. I read it once. Then I walked to the kitchen and held it over the sink while I lit a match. Watched the paper curl and burn. Watched all her words turn to ash. I didn't need her apology. Didn't want her forgiveness. And I sure as hell wasn't letting her anywhere near Oliver. When Brock came by later and saw the burnt paper in the sink, he didn't ask. Just pulled me into a hug and held me while I cried into his shoulder. I'm proud of you, he whispered. For what? For choosing yourself. For not letting her manipulate you into feeling guilty. That took strength. Maybe it did. Or maybe I'd just finally learned that some people don't deserve second chances. That forgiveness doesn't mean letting toxic people back into your life. That protecting your peace is more important than keeping the peace. 3 months after that, Brock asked me to marry him again. Not the same proposal from before. This time it was simple. Just us and Oliver in my apartment on a random Thursday night. I know we're technically still married, he said with a small smile. But I want to do this right this time. Start over. I want to marry you again, knowing everything I know now. Knowing what it takes to keep you. Knowing that I'll spend the rest of my life earning your trust. I looked at the man kneeling in front of me. At our son watching curiously from his high chair. At the life we'd almost lost and somehow managed to save. Ask me again in 6 months, I said. His face fell for just a second. Then he smiled. Okay. 6 months. I'll wait. And I knew he would. Because that's who he'd become. Someone who understood that love meant patience. That trust had to be earned. That some mistakes take years to come back from. Maybe we'd make it. Maybe we wouldn't. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. 6 months came and went. Then another 6 months. Then a year. We didn't get remarried. Didn't even talk about it. But we moved back in together. Slowly merged our lives again. Built something that felt less like the old us and more like an entirely new family. Oliver turned 3. Started preschool. Made friends. Had absolutely no memory of the chaos that had surrounded his birth. As far as he knew, his parents loved each other and his grandma lived far away and sometimes people got sick and that was just life. I never told him the truth about Constance. Maybe someday when he's older. Maybe never. That was a decision I'd make when the time came. Constance sent letters every few months. Always returned unopened. Eventually they stopped coming. I heard through mutual connections that she'd moved to Arizona to live with her sister. That the stroke had affected her mobility. That she'd become bitter and angry, pushing away everyone who tried to help. I felt nothing when I heard that. Not satisfaction. Not sympathy. Just nothing. She was a stranger now. Someone from a bad dream I'd woken up from. Brock kept going to therapy. Even after things got better. Even after we were happy again. Because he said he never wanted to slip back into old patterns. Never wanted to be the kind of person who chose obligation over love. And I kept going too. Worked on my own issues. My tendency to make myself small. My fear of conflict. My habit of ignoring red flags because I wanted to believe the best in people. We both grew up. Finally. At 30 years old, we both finally figured out what it meant to be adults. To be partners. To be parents. On Oliver's 4th birthday, Brock and I were sitting on the back porch watching him play in the yard. The life we'd almost lost spread out in front of us like a gift. Do you regret it? He asked quietly. Taking me back? Giving me another chance? I thought about it. Really thought about it. About all the pain and anger and fear. About the therapy sessions and hard conversations and moments when I'd wanted to give up. About the work it took to rebuild trust. About the strength it took to forgive without forgetting. No, I said finally. I don't regret it. But I'm also glad it happened. He looked at me in surprise. Glad. Not glad about what your mother did. But glad it showed me who I am. What I'm capable of. That I can survive being torn apart and still put myself back together. That I don't need you, I choose you. There's a difference. He reached over and took my hand. I choose you too. Every single day. Oliver came running over then, grass stains on his knees and a huge smile on his face. Daddy. Mama. Watch me do a cartwheel. We watched him tumble across the lawn, all uncoordinated limbs and pure joy. And I thought about how close we'd come to losing this. How one woman's manipulation had nearly destroyed everything that mattered. But it hadn't. We'd fought back. We'd survived. We'd built something stronger from the ruins. That night after Oliver was in bed, I finally pulled out the ring Brock had tried to give me 2 years ago. The one I'd told him to keep until I was ready. "Ask me now," I said. He looked at me, understanding in his eyes. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." So he got down on one knee in our living room, in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, and asked me to marry him again. And this time I said yes. We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Just close friends and family. People who'd supported us through everything. People who'd earned the right to be there. My parents walked me down the aisle. Renata was my maid of honor. Oliver was the ring bearer and took his job very seriously. And when Brock and I said our vows, they weren't the same ones from before. These were honest. Raw. Acknowledging what we'd been through and who we'd become. "I promise to choose you," Brock said. "Even when it's hard. Even when other people try to come between us. Even when it would be easier to run away. I promise to trust you, believe you, and stand beside you. Not behind you, not in front of you, but beside you as equals. I promise that you and Oliver will always come first. Always." My turn. I looked at this man I'd almost lost and found again. I promise to be honest about what I need. To speak up when something hurts instead of staying quiet. I promise to forgive without forgetting, to grow without losing myself, and to love you fiercely but never blindly. I promise to build a family based on respect, not obligation. And I promise to teach our son that real love requires courage. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. The reception was perfect. Simple and joyful and full of the people who mattered. Renata gave a speech about friendship and loyalty that had everyone laughing and crying. My dad danced with Oliver. My mom told embarrassing stories from my childhood. And Constance's name was never mentioned once. She was a ghost. A cautionary tale. A reminder of what happens when control matters more than connection. Late in the evening, when most of the guests had left and Oliver was asleep on a pile of coats, Brock pulled me onto the dance floor for one last song. "Happy?" he asked. "Happy," I confirmed. "No regrets." Only one. That I didn't trust myself sooner. That I let anyone make me doubt my own truth. He pulled me closer. "You trusted yourself when it mattered most. That's what counts." The song ended. The DJ started packing up. The venue staff began clearing tables. Our wedding day was ending, but our real life was just beginning. A few years have passed since then. Oliver is 7 now. Smart and funny and kind. He asks sometimes why he only has one grandma, why Daddy's mom isn't around. We tell him simple truths. That not all family is healthy. That sometimes loving someone means keeping them at a distance. That he's safe and loved, and that's what matters. Brock's relationship with his mother never recovered. She reached out a few times over the years. Birthday cards for Oliver that we threw away unopened. Emails Brock deleted without reading. A letter from her lawyer requesting visitation rights that our lawyer shut down immediately. The restraining order eventually expired, but we got a new one. And then another. She finally stopped trying about 2 years ago. I heard she's in a nursing home now. Alone except for occasional visits from her sister. I feel nothing about that except maybe a little sad for the relationship she could have had with her grandson if she'd chosen differently. But that's the thing about choices. We all make them. And we all live with the consequences. Constance chose control over connection. Brock chose growth over comfort. I chose myself over settling. And Oliver? He's growing up in a home where he sees his parents communicate honestly. Where disagreements are handled with respect. Where boundaries are clear and love is unconditional but not unlimited. Where he's learning that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up. Who tells the truth. Who chooses you even when it's hard. Last week, Oliver came home from school upset because a friend's parents were getting divorced. "Is that going to happen to you and Daddy?" he asked with worried eyes. I pulled him onto my lap. "No, baby. Your daddy and I work very hard to stay together. We talk about our feelings. We go to therapy. We choose each other every day. Marriage isn't always easy, but it's worth fighting for when it's with the right person. Was Daddy always the right person? I thought about how to answer that. Daddy made some big mistakes, but he learned from them. He became the right person by doing the hard work to change. That's what matters. Not that people are perfect, but that they're willing to grow. He seemed satisfied with that answer. Ran off to play with his toys. Left me sitting there thinking about how far we'd all come. Tonight, Brock and I are sitting on that same back porch, watching Oliver play in the same yard. The evening sun casting long shadows across the grass. Everything familiar and safe and earned. I got an email today, Brock says quietly. From my aunt. Constance's sister. My body tenses automatically. Old habits. What did it say? That Constance is dying. Lung cancer. Maybe 6 months left. He's quiet for a moment. She wants to see me. To meet Oliver before she goes. Here it is. The final test. The one I've been dreading for years. I reach over and take his hand. What do you want to do? I want to ask you what you're comfortable with. That's not what I asked. What do you want? He's quiet for a long time. Part of me thinks I should go. Say goodbye. Be the bigger person. But the bigger part of me remembers what she did. How she tried to destroy us. How she never apologized for the right reasons, only for getting caught. How she spent years trying to manipulate her way back into our lives instead of actually changing. He looks at me. I don't think I owe her forgiveness just because she's dying. Relief floods through me. You don't owe her anything. And Oliver? Should I take him? Give her a chance to meet her grandson? Only if you want to. Only if it's for you, not for her. But I won't judge you either way. This is your choice. He thinks about it for another minute. Then he picks up his phone and types a response to his aunt. Shows it to me before sending. I'm sorry she's sick, but I won't be visiting. She made her choices years ago. She chose to forge documents, destroy my marriage, and poison my relationship with my wife and son. Those choices have consequences. I wish her peace in her final months, but that peace won't include me or my family. He hits send. I squeeze his hand. I'm proud of you. For what? For choosing us. For knowing your own worth. For understanding that death doesn't erase damage. We sit in comfortable silence as Oliver does cartwheels across the lawn. The same cartwheels he's been practicing for years. Getting better each time. Growing stronger. That's what life is, I think. Practicing the same moves over and over until you get them right. Falling down and getting back up. Learning from mistakes. Choosing growth over comfort. Some people never learn those lessons. They stay stuck in patterns of control and manipulation. They push away everyone who loves them and wonder why they end up alone. But some people do the work. They face their demons. They take accountability. They build something better from the ashes of what they destroyed. Brock and I did that work. We're still doing it. Every day is a choice to be better, love harder, communicate more honestly. And Oliver is watching. Learning what healthy love looks like. Understanding that mistakes can be forgiven, but patterns of harm don't have to be tolerated. Seeing that real strength is in vulnerability, not dominance. 6 months later, we get the notification that Constance has passed away. Brock reads the email, nods once, and deletes it. We don't go to the funeral. Don't send flowers. Don't acknowledge it beyond that single moment. Some people might think that's cruel. That we should have been the bigger people. That family is family no matter what. But those people weren't there when she forged those documents. When she looked me in the eye and told my husband his son wasn't his. When she tried to destroy an innocent baby's relationship with his father because she couldn't control who her son loved. Being the bigger person doesn't mean letting toxic people hurt you repeatedly. It means protecting your peace and teaching your children that they deserve respect. So we move forward. We live our lives. We build our family on foundations of truth and trust and honest communication. And every night when I tuck Oliver into bed, I tell him the same thing. You are loved. You are wanted. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. The things Constance tried to take from him. The things she tried to make Brock doubt. But we survived her lies. We built something beautiful from the ruins she tried to create. And that's the real victory. Not that we defeated her, but that we chose love over control. Trust over suspicion. Growth over stagnation. That's the lesson I hope Oliver carries with him. That's the legacy I want to leave. Love is a choice. Trust is earned. Family is built on respect. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to honor those truths. Brock and I learned those lessons the hard way. But we learned them. And we're teaching them to our son. That's enough. That's everything. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you for watching. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Have you ever dealt with a toxic family member? How did you handle it? Your story might help someone else going through the same thing. And if this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more real-life stories coming that will inspire you, challenge you, and remind you that you're not alone in your struggles. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's doubting themselves. Someone who needs permission to choose their own peace. Your support means everything, and I read every single comment. Until next time, remember, trust yourself, protect your peace, and never let anyone gaslight you out of your own truth.